Masechta Sanhedrin, Daf Yud Beis Amud Aleph. We're going to start from the last line on Yud Aleph Amud Beis. The Rabbanon, you learned. The Rabbanon learned Eim Apis Hashana. We don't make a leap year, Mishnei Oven, in a year of hunger. Tanya, we learned Nabraisa, and very simple, because if they would be Ma'abed a year, they would have to wait an additional month till it will be permitted to eat from the new Tfuah, and because you have to wait for the Omer, which is in Chodesh Nisan, but if you can extend a second order, it's going to be another month, and in the meantime, they're going to starve. They need food. Tanya, we learned Rabbi says, it says in the Pasuk, there's a man who came from the city of Baal Shalisha. He came to Elisha Navi, Lech Bikurim, Esim Lechem Seidim, meaning lechem that's made from a new bread that's made from barley that was ripened just now. So, as the beginning of the Brisa proves that year it was fitting that the year should be a leap year because the Tfuah became ripe very late. And there was no place as fast ripening fruits Yosim Baal Shalisha than the city of Baal Shalisha. Became nevertheless in that time nothing ripe except one min. Maybe you're going to say that the lechem that was ripe was mechitim from wheat, which is b'derech klal after Pesach. And the barley that was ripened before the wheat, for sure, was already ripened before Pesach. Tamad Lema, comes the pasuk says no. It says, even though it was bikurim, it was the item was the one that ripe just now, and not before Pesach. Shamatayma lefneima. Maybe you're going to say, oh, it ripened before Pesach in a normal time for harvesting the barley. Tamalema comes the pasuk and says that Elisha said, "Ten la'am yachelu, give to the nations so that they eat." Which from here we see it was acha imaya. It was after the ima. So if so, because if not, it would have been forbidden to eat the new wheat. So you see, it was the barley that was ripened and right before the ima. Says the Gemara, since we proved that the Tfuah was late in ripening, really, that year which we're talking about with Elisha was fitting that should be a leap year, because the season of spring, that when Chodesh Nisan came, most of the Tfuah was not ripened. Ad K'dei Kach, that after the 16th of Nisan, the only things that were ripened was the barley. So you see, Chodesh Nisan was not yet the Chodesh of spring. So they should have really made a leap year. Why didn't Elisha make a leap year? Because it was a year of hunger. And everybody was running to the granary in order to find food. So you learn here from this story that you don't make a leap year in a year of hunger. Bezdin doesn't establish before Rosh Hashanah for the next year that it should be Mu'beres. Because by the time it reaches the month of Adar, people will forget that it's a Ibayah. And they'll make Pesach on other Sheni and eat Chametz by mistake, because they won't know that there was other Sheni. But if Bezdin did it before Rosh Hashanah, it's not going to be considered as a leap year. When they weren't able to be Ma'abed Shana closest to Adar as possible, because they were concerned they won't find professional dayanim, or maybe the king of Rome will withhold them from sitting in Bezdin. Then they're allowed to sit down even immediately after Rosh Hashanah and decide to make a leap year and notify everyone about their decision. Nevertheless, in a time of need, you're allowed to decide for Iba Hashanah only after Rosh Hashanah. We don't. So first of all, it's only after Rosh Hashanah, and Eim Abim, and we don't make a Iba Yar through adding one of the months of the year, any month of the year. Ella, when Adar comes, you should make the only month that you should make an additional month is Adar, that you should make 2 Adars. In fact, Ini is the Taka that didn't so that even in a time of a need, you're not me'aba only after Rosh Hashanah. You just said only after Rosh Hashanah, but not before Rosh Hashanah. There was an incident that the Chacham sent to Rabba sign language, Zug. Talmid Chacham, because they didn't want anybody, the government, to know what's going on. Zug, Talmid Chacham and Bamirakis came from Tveria, Usefasei Nasher, and they were captured by the army. And there were in their hands things that were made on luz. What were these things that were made on luz? Tcheles, the tzitzis. So b'schus harachmim, b'schus of the pity of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, b'schus of, and the schus of Rabbah, yotzav v'sholem, they went out free. But that's not where the question starts. The question starts from here. The Nasi in Eretz Yisrael, who was a descendant from Nash Bar Aminadab, the first Nasi to Shevet Yehuda, Bikshu L'Kvay L'Tzid Echad. They wanted, meaning the Nasi in his head, wanted to add another month. Netziv is an officer, but here it means a month. But the Malchus, the kingdom of Rome, the Shayim over there, were guys excited not to allow to make a leap year. But the gathering of Talmidei Chacham, and that's what we're covered like Netziv Echad by Yareh Shemeis by Aaron HaKohen. They gathered and they established. Netziv Echad usually means one officer, meaning 1 month, extra month. They live a year in the month that Aaron HaKohen died, which was Chedesh Av. So you see, they made Iba Yar for the future, for in the year before, meaning before Rosh Hashanah, and Av before Rosh Hashanah, that in the coming year, they should make 2 others. So you see, B'Shas Chag, Bezdin could make a Iba Hashanah even before Rosh Hashanah. Yeah, they're allowed to calculate before Rosh Hashanah. Galui Lemegalo. This that the Baraisa said that you can calculate before Rosh Hashanah, but to reveal that there's going to be a Iba Yar is only after Rosh Hashanah. My mashma, the Hai Netziv Lishma Yahu. And where's the mashmos that Netziv means a month? And the Gemara B'Chsiv, it says, "For the Shlomo Shlomo had 12 officers. I'll call you Yisrael over the whole Yidden. And each Netziv was responsible for 1 month for the king and the household. And so you see, every Netziv was a Mamuna for 1 month. So you see, Netziv corresponds to a month. You see, because each Netziv was responsible for a month of the sustenance of the king and his family. In fact, what about Ksiv, which is Mashma? There was only 1 Netziv for the whole year. So maybe it means a year, not a month. You have no proof that it means a month. And the Gemara, Rav Yehuda ben Rav Nachman, some machlokes between Rav Yehuda and Rav Nachman. Chad Omar, that this Netziv Achman Emunah HaKulam, he was a Emunah of all the other Netzivim of the 12 months. The Chad Omar, one says, no, that they had one, meaning the Chol Shana meant for Iber Shana, Shana Mu'beres, so he was achrei for the sustenance of the king and the household in other sheni, for the extra month. One cannot make a leap year a year before in order to avoid the leap year for the next year. That everything should fall out well for the next year. Rather, the year that needs it, that's when you make the leap year. You cannot make a leap year consecutively for 3 years. Rabbi Shimon says, that he was in prison, locked up in prison, and he was me'aber. He made a Libya year for 3 years consecutively. In fact, the Chacham said, from there you bring proof You can't bring proof there. Bezdin Yoshua cover kolach zayach bizmana. Meaning, since Rabbi Akiva was a bucky in Iber Hashana, and he was about to be killed, so the Chachamim came, because we know from the Asarei Huriyah Malchus, so the Chachamim came to hear the Cheshbonesim for the future. So how to calculate? So he gave them the Cheshbon, and they asked, and it wasn't consecutive years, for the future years, which years should be a Iber Hashana, and those years the Bezdin sat down and established each year individually for a leap year, but not that they did it at that time for 3 years, and it wasn't for 3 consecutive years. We don't make a leap year in the Shnas HaShmita in order not to prolong the Isa of working the land, which is also Shvius. Neither a Matzei Shvius, because they didn't plant anything in the year of Shvius, so they only have the 12 from the 6th year, and now it's already close to Pesach of the 8th year, and if you're going to push off Pesach, meaning the Kab Ma'ima, so they're going to lengthen the Isa Chadash over the new Tvua that was planted after the Shnas HaShmita. So he must say, if you don't do it then, he must give Laba. When is the normal time to be Maba? Says he want to be Erev Shvius, on Erev Shvius, in order to add another month, so that they should be able to work the Karka another month before Shvius. That's when is the normal time. So Beis HaMegamil, the Beis HaMegamil did do it on Matzei Shvius, and they weren't concerned that the old Tfuah from the 6th year was gone, and they're banking on the new Tfuah, and if you're going to prolong a month, you're not going to have what to eat. They weren't concerned about it. And we looked at the Tanoi, because they were arguing in the machliks of these Tanoim. They tell you that we learned we don't bring vegetables or Tfuah from Chutz La'aretz to Eretz Yisrael, even in regular years. But Rabbi Seinu Itidu, but Rabbi Seinu were Mata. So this machlik is the machliks of Tanakama and Rabbi Shimon Gamliel. The Tanakama and that Braisa holds like the Tanakama and this Braisa, that it's forbidden to bring Tfuah mechutz la'aretz, and therefore, since in the 8th year there's no Tfuah, so you cannot make a leap year in order to allow them to be able to eat from the new Tfuah, which is the only Tfuah that they have, without pushing off an additional month to wait for the new Tfuah. But the Bezdin Gamliel held like the Rabbi Seinu and the Braisa that are allowed to bring Tfuah from Chutz La'aretz, and therefore they did make a leap year, even though the Isa Chadash, the new Tfuah, was lengthened over the Tfuah that grew in Eretz Yisrael, but there was Tfuah from Chutz La'aretz, which wasn't a problem. In fact, my benayu, what's the Yesod of Machlekes? The Yesod of Machlekes is if you're concerned that maybe if you bring the clods of earth that's connected with the Tfuah, that the tumah will transfer into the Tara that's in Eretz Yisrael if they're under the same roof, and you have the gush, the clods of sand from Chutz La'aretz, which was from Tumas Meis, and they'll be under the same roof with other Taras. It will transfer the Taras and make it Tameh. And so the Tanakama was concerned for that. That's why he forbade to bring vegetables or Tfuah from Chutz La'aretz. But the Rabbi Steiner said we're not concerned for it, and therefore they are allowed to bring the vegetable Tfuah from Chutz La'aretz. That we don't make a leap year because when the Yisrael were Tameh in the time of Akavas HaPesach. So B'chlal, the din is that if there was a miyut of Tumah, a miyut of people that were Tameh, then they would have to wait till Pesach Sheni. But if the majority were Tameh, how is the child that the majority were Tameh? So here it's talking about, Rashi says that the Nasi was very ill, and he was about to die within the week of being Makar the Korban Pesach, and the din is when a Nasi passes away, it's a mitzvah of all Klal Yisrael to be mishtatev in the Levaya and the Kfura. So like this, all the Yidden will be Tameh, and so they wouldn't be, so you would have a majority. or we're talking about in a time when most of the Bnei Yisrael were Tamei at the end of Adar, and there was not enough Efer water with the mix with Efer Chatos. They had to find another paraduma in order to make Efer, in order to make ashes from the red heifer, and they wouldn't have. So therefore, they were all Tamei before Pesach. So you would think that you should be Ma'abed Hashanah. So we say no. Yehuda says that the Tanakhama says, "Ein Ma'abed Hashanah of Bnei Atuma," because most of Bnei Yisrael were Tamei, so they were allowed to be Makar to come Pesach. Yehuda argues Vahima, and he says Ma'abed, we do because of Tuma. Amar Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda says the Ma'is Chizkiah Mel Yehuda Shibis Hashanah of Bnei Atuma. The story with Chizkiah, the king of Yehuda, who's Ma'abed, he made a live here a year because of the Tuma that the Bnei Yisrael were Tamei in the days of Achaz, the father of Chizkiah, and they were over Naveda Zara, and they didn't watch the Torah. But when Chizkiah took over, he made them do tshuva, and he knew that they wouldn't get a chance to become Torah before Pesach, so he made a leap year year. Then Ubik Shachman al Atzmai. Afterwards, for making a leap year, he begged for pity that the Eibishter should forgive him. Like it says in the pasuk, Yimar b'Zahav, that there was a majority of the people, Rabbis Ephraim and Menashe, many of Ephraim and Menashe, Yisachar was willing, Lo Yitaru, that they weren't Torah. They ate the Pasuk not like it's according to the Torah, because they were supposed to eat the Pasuk the month before, and they weren't supposed to make a leap year. Hashem, the good one, Yichap Ba'ad, should forgive for the sin that he was Ma'abed Hashanah and pushed off the Pesach. Rab Shimon argues and says, if because of Tumah, that's why they made a leap year, Mubares. It's a good Ibayah, and Chizkiah didn't have to ask for kapara for that. He didn't have to ask for forgiveness for that. Why did he ask for forgiveness? Because the halacha is that the only month that we make a leap year is Adar. And meaning, in Adar, you have to make it. Before you Mekadesh Chedesh Nisan. But who Iba Nisan? But Chizkiah made Iba in the year, in the month of Nisan. After they were Mekadesh Chedesh L'Shem Nisan, he went and decided to make it into other Sheni. And the halacha is, no, once it's already Nisan, you can't change it into other Sheni. Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda, Rabbi Shimon. Shimon ben Yehuda said the name of Shimon Chizkiah was the year not beneath not ba'ada. He didn't make a leap year. Why did he ask for a kapara? Mipnei sheheses Yisrael last Pesach Sheni, which was Shalei Kedin. He convinced the Bnei Yisrael not to be marking the Korban Pesach on the first Pesach, rather on the second Pesach, which is Shalei Kedin, because if the majority are Tamei, you're allowed to be marking the Korban Pesach even on Pesach Rishon. Omamar. Tana said in the Marais, Rabbi Yehuda Me'abrim, that we make a leap year because of Tumah. Alma Islay Rabbi Yehuda. It implies that Rabbi Yehuda holds Tumah. Tumah is only if the only time that you're matter Yidden to do Avodah even while the Tamei is only if it's not possible. But if there's a possibility to do it while they're Torah, you have to take that route. And therefore, according to Rabbi Yehuda, who holds Tumah T'chuyu Hibetzibah, he says you have to make, if everybody was Tamei, and there's a way that they can be back while they're Torah, so you make a leap year. Because T'chuyu means it's only if there's no other way, then you allow them to do a bit Tumah. But here there was another way, by making a leap year. In fact, your mother Stina on Rabbi Yehuda himself. Well, at time you learned to have Raisa, Tzitz. Kolzman, the Tzitz, Ben Sheish Na Mitzchay, Ben Shei Na Mitzchay. Whether the Tzitz was on the Kohen Gadol's forehead or not, and a person did Avodah B'Tumah, Miratza, the Tzitz had forgiven the person who did Avodah B'Tumah. Did Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Yehuda argues. The Ayman, he says, while it was still on his forehead, on the Kohen Gadol's forehead, when the Tumah, Avodah B'Tumah happened, Meratzah is forgiven. Ain't Eidal Mitzchay. But if the tumah that he did avoid with tumah while the tzitz wasn't on the Kohen Gadol's head, ain't the Meratzah, a forehead, it's not he's not forgiven. Amalei Rab Shimon said to Rabbi Yehuda, what? Kohen Gadol b'Yom HaKippurim Yechiach. I'll show you like my shita that even when it's not on the Kohen's forehead, somebody who does avoid with tumah is forgiven. Why? We see that tzitz was Meratzah on Yom HaKippurim, even though he didn't wear the tzitz. In the time of Avodas Yom HaKippurim Pnimius, where he only wore the white and no gold, he didn't wear the tzitz. Nevertheless, we said Umaratzah, that the tzitz was Meratzah for the Avodah that was done with Tumah. Amalei Rabbi Yehuda, Hanach lo Yom HaKippurim. Put aside Yom HaKippurim. And the thing is that Avodah B'tzibah, you don't need the tzitz to forgive. Shekein Tumah Huta B'tzibah, because Rabbi Yehuda holds Tumah is Hutra, meaning that it's not only if it's an impossible case. Tumah is L'chatchilam, to begin with, the thing is that it's Muta to do Avodah B'Tumah. And it has nothing to do with Itzur, which is a contradiction to what we just said. That we just concluded from the Braisa that Rabbi Yehuda says Me'abrim, because Rabbi Yehuda holds Tumah T'chuyi B'tzibur. And here we see Rabbi Yehuda says Tumah Hut B'tzibur. So the Gemara answers, well, the time, according to your Svara, in understanding the words of Rabbi Yehuda in the previous Braisa, the reason why he made a leap year because he holds T'chuyi B'tzibur, Tikshi Loch Hi Gufa, the Braisa in itself contradicts from the beginning to the end of the Braisa. In the beginning of the Braisa it says, Rabbi Yehuda Ima Ma'abrim. He says, you make a leap year. It's mashma that you're allowed to make a leap year, and because Tumah, you want to say Tumah T'chuyi B'tzibur. But then it says, Rabbi Yehuda, Mais V'Chizkiel Mel Yehuda She'ibes Hashana, Mipnei HaTumah, it says that the story of Chizkiel, the king of Yehuda, that he made a leap year because of Tumah, Ubikishacham Atzmai. And Chizkiel was begging for forgiveness for making a leap year because of the Tumah. And this is Rabbi Yehuda in the beginning of the sentence says you're ma'abrim, and then he brings the story that of Chizkiah that he was asking for forgiveness for being ma'abrim for Tumah. So it's a stira. Rather, it's missing words in the Braisa. This is how you have to learn. You can't make a leap year because of Tumah. And if you did, it's going to be a leap year because Tumah is the Chuyi B'tzibah. That meaning that it's only an impossible case, then we allow him to do the Avodah with Tumah. But if you can make a leap year and they can all be Makabeh B'Tada, then you're Ma'abrim. And then it says that Yehuda argues, he says that it's not a Mubarak, you're not allowed to make a leap year because Tumah is Hut B'tzibah. And then this, and that's what Rabbi Yehuda said the story with Chizkiel. He had no right to make a leap year when most of the majority of the people were Tamei, or all the people were Tamei. And that's why he asked for pity for himself. In fact, if according to Tanna Kama, if he was Ma'abed Shana, it is Mu'baris according to the Tanna Kama. Reb Shimon says, Im mipnei atumei bruah Mu'baris. Rabbi Shimon also says, if because of Tumah he made a leap year, it's Mu'baris, it's a Mu'baris the year. So, and he didn't say Lashon L'chatchila, he said, but it's good. So it's mashma that he says you're not supposed to be Ma'aba, you shouldn't make a leap year L'chatchila. So L'chein Haino Tanna Kama, it's exactly the sheet of the Tanna Kama, according to what we said to begin with. You shouldn't make a Yibaya. Amarava L'chatchila Ikvanayu. The chilik between Rabbi Shimon and Tanna Kama is to begin with. According to Tanna Kama, to begin with, you don't make a Ibaya because of Tumah. To begin with, because of Tumah, you don't make a Ibaya. You don't make a Lipiyah. But if you did it, it's good. Rabbi Shimon didn't use a Lashon Di'evet. He said, because Rabbi Yehuda, it says, Im Hibruah Ein Mu'bares. Rabbi Yehuda said, if he was Ma'abed Shana, it's not Mu'bares. And that's why Rabbi Yehuda came to argue. I'm sorry, Rabbi Shimon came to argue and said, if he did it, it's more beres. But really, La'ilam, he says, you're me'aber mipnei atuma even l'chatchila. Not like the Tanakhama says, only b'diavad, if you did it, it's good. Rabbi Shimon holds that even l'chatchila, you should go ahead and make a leap year because of Tumah. Tanya Nami Halach, we learned in the Braisa similarly. You shouldn't do a leap year for the reason of Tumah to begin with. Rabbi Shimon argues that you are allowed to make a leap year for Tumah itself, even l'chatchila. So according to Rabbi Shimon, if you're allowed to do l'chatchila, what did Chizkiah beg for forgiveness for? He did the right thing. Why did Chizkiah ask for forgiveness for himself? To tell you that his mistake was that really could only be make a leap year in the Chodesh Adar before being Mekadosh Chodesh Nisan. But he was Ma'abed the month after they already established the Chodesh Nisan. It was already Nisan, and then he went and transformed it into other Sheni. And that's forbidden. Omamar, we learned in the Braisa Shem Abn Hela Ada, Vehu Iben Nisan, you're not Ma'abed a second month, only in Ada itself, but not in Nisan. In fact, you might have less little Chizkiah. Does Chizkiah not hold what it says in the Pasuk HaChodesh Hazel Lachem? Meaning Zen Nisan, Vein Acha Nisan, to tell you once Chodesh Nisan is established, you can't make it into another month. That's the month of Nisan, and once it's established. So you want to talk with the Shmuel. He made a mistake in Shmuel. Shmuel said you cannot make a leap year on the 30th day, a second month Adar, on the 30th day of Adar. Because sometimes the 30th of Adar is going to be the first day of Nisan. Sometimes it can happen. Yusava and Chizkiah holds, and he says that we don't say the Svara, since it's fit to become Nisan, so therefore it's going to be forbidden to make a second Chodesh Adar on the 30th day. He doesn't hold of something that's Roi. Right now it's not Roi to be Nisan. Right now it's part of Adar. That's why if he made Adar Sheni, so it's... That's why he made Adar Sheni. But with the B'Seif, he admitted, to Shmuel, that, since it's Roi, you're not allowed, and that's why he asked for pity for Hashem, that he made a mistake, and he understood that Shmuel was right, that something that's Roi to become Nisan has a din like Nisan, and he wasn't allowed to make a second Adar on the 30th day of Nisan, 30th day of Adar. Tanya Nami Hachi, so to we learned in the Braisa, we don't make a second month Adar on the 30th day of Adar. Since the 30th day is fit to make it as Chodesh Nisan, sometimes it can be the first day of Nisan, and that's why we don't allow to make on the 30th day, even if it's the 30th day of Adar, to make it a second Adar on that day. Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda, Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda said, Rabbi Shimon, what was the reason that Chizkiah asked for pity for forgiveness? Mipnei of the mistake that he says Yisrael lost his Pesach Sheni, that he convinced the Bnei Yisrael that they shouldn't be marked by Pesach Rishon to come Pesach, only by Pesach Sheni. Like, you want to tell me what's the case talking about? He knew for sure the din that only if it's a few Yechidim, then you're allowed to be marked with Pesach Sheni, but not a Tzibur. A tzibur has to do Pesach Rishon. Ravashi answered, that it was half by the Bnei Yisrael was half Tahirim, half Tmeim. The Noshim were most of the ones that were Tahir. Mashlim Meis La Tahirim. They were Mashlim to the Tahirim, so they made it that the men were the Miyut of the Tmeim. Right V'Saleim. And there was so much more women that V'Sach Hakel, it came out that it was Reiv Tahirim. That's why he pushed it off to Pesach Sheni. And why did he count the women to make it into Reiv Tehirim? And it was only a miyut of Tmeim, which would not allow them to be back to come Pesach Rishon. And that's why they pushed it off to Pesach Sheni, because to begin with, he thought Nashim Achayavim and bringing the coming Pesach on Yudalet Nisan. That's why they have Miutim Tmeim. So if you count the women, the men, so the mitzvah, the whole Klal Yisrael, together with the women, so there was only a miyut who were tamei. Or miyut to mitchel the Pesach Sheni. If it's only a miyut that are tamei, they have to be pushed to Pesach Sheni to be sacrificed to come Pesach. At the end, he held that women are not mechuyev to bring a Korban Pesach. Only they're allowed to be meshtatif if they want, but not mechuyev. So now, if you look at the men itself, the Havalut Mei Meruah. So the Scharim were, if it was only males, they were a majority of Tumah. Ruba, Lem Yitzchel Pesach Sheni. And the majority of men who are Tamei don't get pushed off the Pesach Sheni. And that's why he asked for forgiveness. Go from him for Yigeland. Shmuel said, we learned earlier, Shmuel said, that we don't make a leap year on the 30th of Adar. Nisan, since it's fit that the 30th day should be sometimes the first day of Nisan. In fact, you want to Hebrew what's it best Moseva? And they did make it a leap year a month. They added a month on the 30th day of Adar to Adar Sheni. Ullah said, B'diavad, it's going to be Mubares, but Ein Mekachin Sachidish. You don't say Mekudshul Adar Sheni. Because since this day is fit to be sometimes as a Chodesh Nisan, so don't say Mekudesh. Rather keep quiet, and when the following month comes, you'll the month after the other Sheni, you'll be Mekadesh the month after, and you'll say Mekudesh Chodesh Nisan. Okay, so Kichu or Mekudesh Nisan. Okay, Kichu Mai. What's if he did? So he was Mekadesh the 30th day for Chodesh Adar Sheni. What's the din? Does it become Batal Iba Hashana or not? Whatever Batal Iba. Rav said the Iba Hashana is Batal. You don't make a Adar Sheni. Rav Nachman Amar Muba. Rav Nachman says it's Chal still. Umekudesh, and the second Adar Sheni is Kadesh. Amalei Rav Nachman Mechti. Let's look into this. Mipuri lePischat Lasun Yom Hava. Between Purim and Pesach is 30 days. From Purim, we start dashing at Hilchas Pesach, that, like we learned, the Tanya Nabraisa, Shoylim, Hilchas Pesach, the Pesach, Shleshim Yoyim, that we start learning about Hilchas Pesach, asking about the halachas of Hilchas Pesach, in order we should be Bekim Hilchas Pesach 30 days before. 2 weeks before. So, that's when they started to be Shalva Derish in the halachas of Pesach. So if we're going to say like you, and when Chodesh comes right after Purim, and they already started to learn the halachas of Pesach without hearing anything about that is a leap year. Bezdin will listen to Pesach through a Iba Hashana, and when the Shluchei Bezdin will come to notify on the Iber Hashana to these people who are already learning Hilchas Pesach from Purim, they won't believe them. And they'll make Pesach 30 days after Purim, because they were learning the whole time Hilchas Pesach. And then when Pesach really arrives, they're going to eat chametz with Pesach. They'll come to be mezalzin l'isach chametz. Amalei, so I'm not going to say to Rava, you don't have to worry about this zilzal, this zilzal cheapening the Isa of chametz, meaning that there will be over an Isa chametz with Pesach. People will know that Ashana Mubaris goes according to a cheshbon. There's a difference, and sometimes we have to add days. There's a difference between the solar year and the lunar year, and when we add a couple of days, of course, but you have to add a couple of days, because if not, the season of the spring is going to end up sometimes earlier. So you have to add a month in order that the season of spring should fall out on Pesach. So the people know that there has to be these cheshbonos. They'll say that Chacham didn't get a chance to complete the cheshbonos until now in order to make a leap year, and for sure they'll believe the Shluchei Bezdin, who say that they made another other, and they won't be mezalz on the Yisra Chometz, and they'll celebrate Chometz a month later, and they won't be able to Chometz b'Pesach.